Sometimes it might seem as though humans have invaded every nook and cranny on the planet and have made it impossible for Mother Nature to hide anything from our prying eyes. However, as we will discover time and time again, there are still innumerable wild and untamed places on the face of the earth where humans can go, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and then never be seen or heard from again. Tragically, many who go missing after entering the tangle of the wilderness across the globe are often only found once it's too late, or are found right in the nick of time after being at Mother Nature's mercy. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we will be looking at 3 sometimes tragic discoveries in and around the still wild mountains and national parks. Man found in Zion National Park has been identified. Sometimes simple trips into Mother Nature to explore her beauty can be more treacherous than one might think. Seemingly safe and well-traveled pleasure hikes can be just as dangerous to hikers as those trails and areas that are so deeply hidden and isolated. Sometimes months of preparation and supplies are needed before entering these trails. It is for this reason that national park rangers are highly trained in tracking, rescue and other life-saving techniques as they keep an eye on the wild forest and make sure that the people who hike through it return safe. However, sometimes people fall into danger despite their best efforts, as was the case when 42-year-old Corbin McMillan of St. George, Utah, left to go hiking on a Thursday in late February 2021 at Angel's Landing in Zion National Park. Upon being reported missing, the Zion National Park Rangers immediately conducted a search and, around midnight that same night, found his abandoned vehicle at the Grotto trailhead, which leads to Angel's Landing. When his car was still unoccupied at the trailhead the next morning, a formal search was initiated and a thorough sweep of the park began. Tragically, officials announced later that Friday that they had located what they later identified as McMillan's body at the base of Moonlight Buttress, whose summit is part of the West Rim Trail not far from Angel's Landing. The officials reported in their statement that his fatal injuries were consistent with a fall from the summit of the Moonlight Buttress, although the investigation is still ongoing by the Washington County Sheriff's Office, and an official cause of him losing his life has not been announced. Nature can be incredibly unforgiving, treacherous, and even deadly at times, and those who are forced to tangle with the brutal elements of the wilderness and are able to live to tell the tale should count themselves incredibly lucky, for that is tragically not always the case. Teen hiker found alive after spending night in the freezing temperatures. Although not every lost hiker story has a happy ending, there are some stories of those who managed to survive the harrowing conditions. Such is the case in the story of 15-year-old Britton Kelsey, who was one of the ones lucky enough to be at the mercy of nature and live to tell the tale. Kelsey and his family, along with several others, left to go hiking at Red Mountain Trail, which is a stretch of remote hiking area north of St. George, Utah. The expedition split off into 2 groups, and when they reunited at the end of the trip, Kelsey was not in either group and was reported missing by his family. Several search parties led by 2 local sheriff deputies were immediately sent out in helicopters to search the land around where the groups had been hiking. They had to call off the search for the night around midnight, when temperatures were already dropping into the 20-degree Fahrenheit range. The family became increasingly frantic, and the outlook was grim, as Kelsey had only been wearing shorts and a sweatshirt and was not prepared to endure the weather and wilderness in such clothing. The hunt for Kelsey resumed the following morning as soon as it was light, although hope that he had survived the freezing cold temperatures in the night were dwindling. Deputies and rescue crews combed the area on foot and at long last discovered a pair of shoe prints that matched those of the teenager. The crew and medical personnel followed the prints, preparing for the worst, but were led instead to Kelsey, who had miraculously survived and was reunited with his very relieved family. Although he was immediately rushed to the hospital and treated for hypothermia as a result of his night in the freezing weather, Kelsey is expected to make a full recovery and is very lucky to be able to say that he survived such a harrowing ordeal. Spending the night in below freezing temperatures without proper clothing is incredibly dangerous, let alone spending the night in those freezing temperatures in a wild, uninhabited area full of dangerous animals and unfamiliar territory. Hypothermia is a result of exterior temperatures plummeting so low that your body can no longer compensate and maintain a steady internal temperature, so your body temperature begins to fall, affecting all organ and tissue systems. Once hypothermia sets in, between 12 and 40% of all individuals are unable to recover and eventually succumb, depending on how severe the case is. Records show that around 20,000 people die from hypothermia in Britain every year, with 25,000 annual deaths in the United States and 8,000 deaths in Canada. So although Kelsey's young age undoubtedly helped him weather the ordeal without any lasting damage, there is no question that he is extremely fortunate to be reunited with his family, as not all missing hiker stories have such a happy ending. Melanie Meyerson disappearance. While hikers assume an inherent risk by entering uninhabited wilds, sometimes people can disappear into the wilderness much closer to home, never to be seen again. Melanie Meyerson was a 14-year-old in Woburn, Massachusetts, who attended a high school party in the woods outside of town with about a dozen other older boys on a brisk fall night in October 1989. The kids were drinking and partying until the early hours of the morning, when it dwindled to just Melanie and two other boys, Gene Bettini and Jimmy Tresca. Jimmy wanted to return home and offered Melanie a ride to her friend's house where she would be spending the night, but she declined in order to spend more time with Gene. Melanie and Gene left the woods and walked back towards the town together, where Gene had parked his motorcycle. He only had one helmet, and so did not offer Melanie a ride home, and reported that as he drove away, he saw her walking the opposite direction of her friend's house back towards the woods. However, as he was under the influence, he did not think to stop and ask what she was doing and if she needed any help. Melanie was never seen again. Unfortunately, Melanie's parents were known substance abusers and Melanie frequently ran away to escape from them. So when she did not return home that night and for several nights after, investigators assumed that she might have run away towards Florida and lost valuable search days as they waited for her to return. As the days passed and she did not return, investigators theorized that the outcome of that night took a much more sinister turn. The current theory is that Melanie was killed in the woods and that her body was moved several times after. Gene and Jimmy both tell conflicting stories of the night that Melanie went missing, and Jimmy's car was mysteriously missing and reported stolen the week after the incident. Search dogs trained for human remains alerted officers at several different locations in the woods, close to where the party was, but no human remains were ever found when the area was excavated, which led investigators to conclude that Melanie had indeed been buried or hidden around the area and possibly moved multiple times before her body was eventually removed by whoever killed her. Many believe that it was Jimmy and Gene who killed her and then worked together to hide the body, although the evidence against them is mainly based on rumor and gossip. Aside from their conflicting accounts of the events, it was widely reported that Gene had been cheating on his girlfriend with Melanie, and both Gene and Jimmy's girlfriends have refused for years to speak to investigators about what happened that night, despite both being in attendance. Jimmy's stepfather was a police officer in Woburn, and shortly after the incident retired and moved the entire family to Florida. Gene went on to live a life filled with violence and was most notably arrested after pistol whipping and robbing two teenagers at a gas station and then refusing DNA testing in a case that went all the way to the Massachusetts Supreme Court. However, neither of the boys were ever convicted, and it is likely that we may never find out what happened to Melanie on that fateful and tragic night in the woods. Those who choose to brave the wilderness of national parks, mountain ranges, or even seemingly innocuous outdoor trail hikes are frequently at the mercy of nature's whims, even if they do not realize it. Whether simply a surprise rainstorm when you are miles from the trailhead, or becoming lost off the beaten path in unfamiliar wilderness as a freezing darkness begins to fall, we often do not realize how easy it can be to disappear into the wild and never be seen or heard from again. Those who go missing in such conditions and manage to survive to tell the tale should count themselves incredibly lucky, because no one knows what is truly lurking around the bend in the untamed wilds of the earth. But what do you make of these 3 stories? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.